it seems like you were given quite a lot of flexibility with the show to kind of adapt it in your own way with like the characters. So like you see characters like Amber, who is driving dark side, but in the games that wouldn't have been her thing. So
Yeah.
creatively, that must be great for you to kind of not be beholden to the source material and kind of do your own thing.
Yeah, what's so fun about Twisted Metal is obviously there's a very specific spine to those games and there's a tone to those games that we want to capture. Obviously, some are darker than others. But what's so fun to me about those games is just even looking at who drove what car in
Mm.
each game, it felt like, oh, sometimes, Mortimer drove Shadow, sometimes
Yeah.
Raven drove Shadow. So it kind of gave us the opportunity to kind of switch that around and be surprising. And because the games have been kind of out of the limelight for so long, it also felt like an opportunity to, kind of do a new interpretation, which is always my
Mm.
favorite thing about adaptation is like, oh, how's that character that you remember interpreted now or updated or just in this new environment? What are they like? So it was a lot of fun to just kind of build out this world and see how these characters would have fit into it and how they might have changed from the games, now that they're in this like post-apocalyptic area.
You're not that guy. You're a good guy. Either you jump or you fall.
I know Twisted Metal historically it has that kind of darker, more serious side, but it also has that
Yeah.
that comedic element to it. And I guess how great must it have been for you to kind of when you were trying to bring that comedic element and that comedic atmosphere to kind of have people like Anthony Mackie, Stephanie Beatrix, Jason, Chloe Feynman, all these kind of quite comedy actors that kind of have that rich history. It must make your job a lot easier when you're trying to bring that kind of comedic element into the show.
Absolutely. I mean, they're all total all stars, and we had a lot of fun on set with alts and trying to up it. And they just came ready to play, which made it just so much fun. And what's so great about the show and the world and Twisted Metal, I mean, you said the comedy. I mean, Sweet Tooth wishes to become a caterpillar in the second game, so we do have this like irreverency that we can kind of tap into. So it was really fun to just be like, you never know what's coming around the corner. You never know what these characters are going to be like. And I mean, I remember when we were shooting episode 8, I was talking with Stephanie. I was like, "What if you did this entire scene with a very bad British accent?" And she was like, "Yes, let's do that."
Yeah,
So if that's okay, no offense meant, but we just thought it was she just really had a blast and it was just a great time.
How dare you objectify me?
Oh, no, that's right. I gotta keep it PG-13.
Yeah, you need a map to know where to put it anyway.
One of the things that I was kind of most impressed by, I guess, watching the season was the ability for it to stay quite grounded in what was quite a ridiculous hellscape that you kind of pulled together. So you kind of have this insane world, and it's obviously still very silly and irreverent with some of the characters. And like you said, Sweet Tooth in the second game wants to be a caterpillar, and you definitely feel that kind of insanity going on. But at the same time, it's very grounded. It feels like everything that you do from episode 1 to episode 10 is still within that realms of believability. The thing I'm curious about, though, is like, is that going to be the method going forward? Because you hint at characters coming in the future, but
Yeah.
they come from more of a supernatural monkey paw baggage. And I'm just curious how, in your head, you see those two things working together, or do you want to keep it grounded?
I think I think what's so fun about this world, and I think the thing that makes it feel so grounded, in my opinion, is the characters are just so relatable, and that at its heart, these are very relatable wants of community and connection. And I think like that won't change throughout the entire season or series. Like we really want to make sure that these characters feel real and you believe in them and you love what they're doing. And I mean, look, we're still in the writers' room for season 2, so I can't answer any of that, unfortunately. But I will say that like it's really important to me and the writers and the actors in the show to have these characters have heart and have these very like relatable wants so that you as an audience member are like come to love them and care about them and root for them.
I found Mike. An ice. You want some?
Ooh, yucky. I'm a skills guy.
When it came to the first season and writing it and maybe what you're going through at the moment with season 2, how did you approach which characters you wanted to have in the show? Because you've got so many interesting nods from one episode to the next, but I'm curious how you approached this is going to be like a real cornerstone character of the universe I'm creating, and how you picked like a more irreverent character that you wanted to just be in the background like a pizza boy. What was your thought process behind who you wanted to really build your universe around and who you wanted to just be someone that was just kind of there in the background, so to speak?
That's a great question. I mean, it always started with, I mean, for season one specifically, so much of it is about the relationship between John and Quiet. So it was always about what stage in their relationship are they in at this moment, and then what characters would come into that play, and what would fall into that. Like, I can give an example with episode 7. You know, that episode is very much about, like, you know, you've got your new partner, and you know, what is it like to bring your partner to a work event, and your ex shows up. And we were like, oh my God, Bloody Mary would be the perfect, not to spoil anything, but that character fits really well, knowing her lore and her backstory and how we can update it to fit into that character. So it was always about starting with what characters would mesh well with John and Quiet. But then also for me, it's what are the characters that fans are really excited to see, and having a mental list of, I know people would love this. I know people would love to see that. We know Twister is a fan favorite. Obviously, Sweet Tooth was going to be in the show regardless. So it came from being a fan and thinking, what are the people fans really want to see? And then knowing which ones should we save down the line, because there are other big heavy hitters that people are excited about.
Did you have to make any tough calls on who not to include, or who to maybe cut back on? Because you even see, and you mentioned it there with episode 7, you see Pit Viper very, very briefly, but she plays an important role, but then she's gone. So was there characters either that are in the show that you had to cut back on, or other ones that just didn't make the cut because it maybe didn't fit the overarching arc of the season?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I won't give a specific, because I want to save the character is going to show up. But there was a character, a big character that was going to be in one of the episodes, and we cut it. And I think we cut it for the best. It just allowed you to focus more on John and Quiet's story and the antagonists that they ran into. But we have had to make those cuts, definitely.
This is a bit of an offshoot, but like, how good must it also feel that when you've got all these brilliant characters in the show, that you got to create a really badass original character in Quiet? Like that must feel good. Like if you're sat there thinking, if they make another game, this is definitely making it in. It's like, it must be good.
Oh, it felt great. I mean, look, like the fact that people have come up and asked, is Quiet in the games, is like a huge compliment to me and the writers. I mean, we really just wanted to come at this with, I think that's what's kind of fun too, is we were coming at it thinking, what is a character that I would love to play in the game? Like if I saw Quiet was in the game and she had these axe abilities or, you know, hatchet abilities, that would be a fun character to play as. And that's totally where it came from. And so it's felt very good that people seem to really love Quiet. And Stephanie is a dream to work with, and she's so great as that character. And it was really feeling good.
Stop moving!
I can't get comfortable.
Excuse the pun, but like, how much gas in the tank do you think the series has, like, in terms of longevity? Because it feels like even though you hit on a lot of characters in that first season, and I know that there's more that are coming in season 2, it still feels like there's a lot of backstory for characters like Quiet to unravel, and it feels like there's plenty more there to explore from the characters that you've already touched on. So how long do you kind of see this having potentially?
Honestly, as long as the fans want it, I'm down. I mean, I think what's so fun about Twisted Metal for me is it was so important to feel like the world has weight to it and rules to it and logic to it, so that you want to spend time in this world and spend time with these characters. And I think one of the things I'm really happy about is the feeling that you never know what's around the corner. You never know who you're going to run into or what cool, tribe or group you might run into, like the convoy in season 1. And I think we have the gas to keep going for a long period of time. And honestly, like we're working on season 2 right now. I have ideas for season 3. I'm starting to think about future seasons beyond that. And I'd love to keep this thing going.
I mentioned at the start, like, I played Twisted Metal 1, I played Twisted Metal 2. Do you want to see it have that kind of world tour element that they had in the second game? Or do you think this fits better as kind of a American wasteland? Is it believable if they're in Paris and all that?
I mean, what I think is fun about our show is if we ever got the opportunity to go world tour, I'd be love to answer what happened to those other places, what happened to those other countries and civilizations, and, how were they affected by this apocalypse too? So I'm definitely open to asking those questions and diving into that world building and solving those things. I think it'd be a fun thing to see down the line.
I know you've mentioned how with Cobra Kai, you had tournament seasons and then consequence seasons. And it feels like you're kind of approaching Twisted Metal in the same way. So season 1 was kind of a consequence season, and season 2 feels like it's going to be a tournament season. I'm just curious, do you see that as revolving all around the tournament kind of thing? Or because the thing I loved about season 1 was that you had the main storyline, but it was a branching storyline, because as well as you had John kind of having this kind of Lord of the Rings quest across the country, you also had Sweet Tooth and his arc and that storyline. So do you see with where this is going in the future as like it's all very much a tournament and you want to throw all those toys into that toy box, or do you kind of want to have other stuff going on like adjacent to it?
Here's what I'll say, because we're obviously still writing, so I can't say much and I don't want to overpromise anything, but I think the balance that we struck with season 1 will be apparent in season 2. We want to have those moments feel big and those fights feel earned, and at the same time you want to care about what's happening outside the cars. So I think I think that there'll be a balance that will make fans happy if they really loved season 1.
And you definitely feel that, because for all the great stuff that you have with John and with Quiet, I loved that just as much as I saw the stuff with Stu and Sweet Tooth and that side of the thing. And I never felt like by watching 1, I wasn't getting the best of the show because I'd gone on a different storyline. So I think for me, like that's what I'd love to see more of that, where it's not just just throw them in an arena and then that'll be 10 episodes. Like I like the idea that there's this other stuff that might come alongside it. So yeah,
absolutely.
And again,
thank you. I really appreciate that. That's nice to hear.
Like I said, like big Twisted Metal fan, so all of it landed for me.
Jello, Zachary. Fucking dork.
Towards the end, a certain someone standing in front of kind of a 16 character tournament bracket thing. And you've already kind of teased in interviews with like Peacock, who we'll see in some of those returning characters, but also new characters like Mr. Grimm and Axel. I've got to ask though, like there's 11 other slots there. And like, should fans expect some big surprises, or do you reckon it's more likely that it kind of gets rounded out with that kind of C-list pizza boy drag queen type level of, like, I'm curious how much you're holding back, because you've already, for me, when I got to the end episode, I'm like, wow, they've gone early with those two, and I'm pleased. I'm just curious how many more cards you got up your sleeves there.
I'll say I want to keep the fans surprised, so obviously I'm not going to reveal, but I think much like I think you'll never know who's going to show up. I think that there are, God, how many games are there? Like 8 games, something like that, 7 to 8 games. I mean, there's a ton of them. So there's a lot of characters to pull from. And I think that fans will be surprised at who may show up. And I think that there's going to be some new people too. So not just people pulled from the game, some new characters as well, which will be very fun.
I was going to say, like, I guess seeing how well everyone's responded to Quiet, does that feel like embolden you to like, hey, I don't need to pull from everyone. I can bring other new characters into this. Like that must be quite exciting as well, to feel like, okay, I can do this because I've done it with season 1 and 2.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's for the longevity of the show and the game. I think, you know, if they ever make more, I think we want to have new characters show up. We want there to be an excitement of, you know, was this person from the game or was this originals? I think the fun for new and old fans alike to watch the show. So I think it's a challenge for us, but I think it's worth it.
But you're bringing Mr. Slam back to do his thing again, I'm hoping.
Like, I can't reveal anything, but
like, you got to have that part. You can't do the party piece once. You got to do it a couple of times at least. Seeing the reception that the first season's had and all the kind of amazing comments and people that are coming up to you and seeing that obviously you're in the midst of kind of season 2 now, there must be a small part of you that's kind of thinking, what I'm creating now and the success I'm having with it, if that somehow manifests itself into a new game. It's been 12 years, and as a Twisted Metal fan, we're sitting here and getting very hungry. And seeing the success of the show, I'm thinking, like, if that's not convincing someone, and you must be thinking that to a degree as well. Like, absolutely.
I mean, I would love for there to be another game. I mean, I would love to be a part of it in some way if that happens. It's so above my pay grade. But no, listen, I'm a big video game fan. I love games and I love Twisted Metal. And if we inspired them to make a new one, that would be it'd be so flattering and it'd be an honor. And I think honestly, I just want to get back in that world and play it.
I think I remember reading this right, that you've kind of got to deal with Sony, and let's say they come to you and say, hey, we're going to let you do whatever video game you want. You can see that they're doing stuff with Gravity Rush and Uncharted, and obviously Twisted Metal. It's not, like I said, it's not been around for 12 years, and then instantly you got a massive TV hit. If they come to you tomorrow and say, we'll let you do whatever you want, like what obscure PlayStation game are you pulling from to...
Oh, man. Okay, so I'll give you the non-obscure one first.
Okay.
If that's okay. Destiny.
Oh, big fan.
I'm a huge Destiny fan. Been playing since Alpha. But I love that game. I love that world. And it's a similar thing where the world is so expansive and the lore is so fascinating, and all the things like the books of sorrow and all that stuff is so interesting that it feels like such a good playground to play in. And there's something fun about that world that I would love to take a crack at. If I was going to go more like obscure, I mean, God, what would be a good one? I'm trying to think. Like, I mean, like, there's got to be a fun, like, crazy Ape Escape. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, I don't know if I'd be the one to do it, but Ape Escape feels like a fun. I remember really enjoying that game growing up. I mean, look, like God of War, I would love to take. I know it seems like that's already happening, but yeah, I mean,
I'll take Ape Escape.
Like, okay, cool.
Like, yeah, that works for me. Like, I'd watch Ape Escape. Yeah, exactly. That's my thing. Like back then, with like that and G Police and anything classic PS1. Like, yeah, I'm down for it. Give me more of that any day. Then yeah.
Oh, you know what? I got another one for you. Medieval.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, that one.
I would love that. Actually, I'll take that. Is my. It goes Medieval, Ape Escape. You know, and Destiny's in there too. But yeah, Medieval will be so much fun. It's such a funny game. Yeah. And the backstory is so funny. And I feel like I haven't seen a great fit comedy fantasy. Do you know what I mean? Like that feels like a fun world to crack.
We'll get the petition started. We'll get going with it.
I appreciate that.
Look, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck with all the work you're kind of putting on season 2 now. I cannot wait to see where this series goes.
That's so kind. I appreciate all the kind words, man. It was so nice to meet you.